Hey, this is Big Guy DIY Robert coming to you with a new video. Today I'm going to show you the installation of something called a Ride Lite on one of 3 snowmobiles I own. Let me switch the camera here and show you. This is a product. It's called the Ride Lite. I've used this product before. Actually, I'll show it on one of my sleds here. So I installed this. This is on a 2001 MXZ. I installed this about 10 years ago, so it was underneath a different name at the time, as you can see. But the back here, the way the controls are, which I'll show you better on when I open the package, has not changed. Just a connection for it has here, where this one has a short plug that sticks out. The new one does not. I also have it on a 2012. So here's sled number 2. As you can see how I have it mounted. And then this, the way I mounted it, allows me and that's what I'm talking about, because this cover, if I have to change a belt, this cover would come off. So because of where I mounted it, no interference whatsoever. This one took a bit of time to do. I don't know how it'll be compared to the 600 when I do it, but this one involved taking off this cover, the front, the windshield, the headlight housing, because I had to reach through the headlight housing in order to reach underneath here. Even though I removed the dash panel, it didn't give me the access that I needed to get to the back side of these bolts that are holding this in. As you can see, here's the ball mount used, but on the 600 we're going to use the other mount to hold it in place. So one thing I like, during the day I can see what color I have showing by the reflection off here. Skidoo, which I'll show you how I set that up. And now we're going to put it on a 2014 Renegade. And the difficulty part of this is it's not a hard product to install. It's actually kind of easy. The trick, I think, really comes down to is location. Definitely read your instructions on this, or you can just watch me. So in your package, you have your light, your wiring harness, and these quick connects that come in the package. When you install these lights, you want to choose a location on your sled where it does not interfere with a panel opening up. And I'll show you that a little later. So this is the front of it. This will show solid yellow, solid green, or blinking yellow. And then here's your back. I try, at least I have on my last 2 sleds, install this in a location where you can change the light color from the back, from the switch. I've seen people install it and say in front of their windshield, so if they need to change it quickly, they got to reach around their windshield to do this. So what I try to do is install it somewhere in here It still can be seen from the front of the sled. That won't be an issue. It's just, how do you install it on here? When you first get the unit, it has this rubber adhesive, which you can just stick on like that, which I'm not going to do. Or you can buy a kit that they sell that'll attach to this, which I'm going to show you. When I installed this product originally on my second snowmobile a week ago, you order a kit. And what it is, it's a ram kit. So you get two of these, two balls, and you get the short stem. Then you get two sets of screws, a very short set of screws, and then a long set of screws with the fender washers. So one will install in the sled, the other one will install in here. Now this is what I want to show you from what just happened with me recently. Take the bottom off here. And you will see here and here, this with the short screws would screw into here. And what I learned last week is the thickness of the plastic here is not thick at all. When I had mine installed, I was grabbing it by the top and moving it around, and I managed to tear it. If I can get this open. Hang on. I managed to get this to tear these out. The plastic on the bottom here is not built any thicker to hold these inserts in there. The plastic is only as thick as this here. So that's maybe a 1/16. The inserts go in about an 1/8 to maybe 3/16 in depth, and I had accidentally torn these out. So what I ended up doing was taking this, pushing the inserts back in. I put crazy glue on it, push the inserts back in, and I actually glued this base slightly to the bottom so it was secure on there. So if I need to grab it, or if I'm taking the cover off the snowmobile after trailing and say it accidentally pulls on it, it's not going to rip these inserts out again. So I'm not saying don't use the inserts. I'm just informing you that these can pull out quite easily, and they're not in there that deep. So what I'm going to do differently for the installation of this is I'm going to modify this. I'm not going to use this part. I'm still going to use this. I have extra parts from a Garmin that I did an installation with. So I'm going to use some of my ram mount parts to install this. So this I'm going to use. This is from Ride Lite. And this is from Garmin. This is metal. This is metal. The package that you get from Ride Lite is a ram mount, but it's plastic. So if you ever wanted to upgrade this, I would change this to metal. The one I used on my sled was metal. So what I'm going to do to use this is I'm going to tear this off and then see what I got underneath here. So let's try this. Let me try again. There you go. So when you peel this off, it leaves you with a knob. So I'm going to take this to a bandsaw, or you could use a hacksaw and cut this knob off so it's straight. The objective is we're going to through bolt the one knob onto here. This way there's access to the battery. Now, no, this does not run on a battery. It's if when this loses power and you need the blinking red light, or the hazard light, which is the blinking yellow, it'll run off the battery. And then when you're ready to ride, you click it back. So let's cut this off and start the assembly. All right, I just took a hacksaw and cut it off. Next, now I've already gone out and bought stainless steel bolts with nylock nuts and fender washers. I'll show you the size. These are number 8s, 1 inch and then 3/4 inch. Check our spacing. I think you can see that. So the nut can fit in between, and I actually can drop this screw maybe 2 threads more. But I'm not going to bother. I'm going to leave it as is. All right, part 1 is done. I'm seeing if the nuts touch the bottom, but it does not appear that they do. So they do touch the cover. So what I'm going to do is take these off and I'm going to countersink this hole. This will give me a little opportunity to bring the nut further down. This is a countersink. I want to be careful not to go too deep with this because I don't want to make it too thin. You can see the countersink there. So you can see with the countersink how that nut went down further into the plastic compared to this one, which is sticking above. Both have gone down a little better. So now I can move this where before I couldn't because it was against the nut, so I have that freedom now. Here's your assembly. So let's pick a spot on the sled. Now, over the years, as the sleds developed, going from like the old MXZ where your whole hood opened up, here you have different panels that open up. And the one thing you want to understand is when you're mounting this light, you don't want to mount it to a panel that you need to open, because that means somehow this wire has to run to the hinge and then wherever it's going to be hooked up into the sled, and that will create a problem. So what you want to do is find a secure location where you're not going to open up a panel. My spot is right here. Be a little closer to the windshield. Like so. So, now that I know my spot, my next trick is, how do I get underneath this? Do I have access underneath it? That's the real question. Right now, I can get my fingers right in this area, but I can't in here. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna take this panel somehow off. I've never taken it off on this sled. I've done my sled, but let me take this off. got our panel loose. I don't have to take it off as long as I have access directly underneath here, which I do. There are 3 screws that hold this on. One here, one at the top, and one underneath above your belt. We're going to mark this where we want it. Backside, you want to use the fender washers just because if there's any force, you don't want this to tear up the plastic. So each one, the stainless steel bolts I'm using are 3/4 of an inch long. There you go. Part 1 is done. Next, how to power the unit. I'm kind of finicky about my wiring, but one thing I'm consistent is I run this off the visor plug-in. It's your heat visor plug-in. I steal it off this because I know this is 12 volt DC direct current. So that's why it was 12 volt DC off this one, off the MXZ, and it's 12 volt off my 2012. The reason I point that out is because the headlight on this is not 12 volt DC, it's 12 volt AC. So there's alternating current in the older sleds, only few accessories that use DC, direct current. So new sleds, I don't know what year they started, but the headlights are now DC, because now you can run LED bulbs inside these where you couldn't on the older sleds because of direct current. So what we have to do now is I need access to the back side of this, which means I have to take this panel off now in order to access this. Alright, thanks to my son, he helped me get the one screw off, but the wire we need to get to is this wire here. That goes right up to our visor. So what we're going to do is we have to cut this wire tie that's on here, and we got to open the wire up. And we'll splice into it right here. Alright, so let me work on opening that up and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's opened. So I've peeled back taping to the wiring here so we can piggyback off these wires. We're going to splice into this wire. This is a plug that goes into the snowmobile harness. This is the fuse for the electric goggles, or electric goggles for the electric visor. Why they put a fuse here, which is buried underneath here, is beyond me. Because if the fuse blows, most of the time you'd be looking over here by the battery to see what fuse is blown. You wouldn't be looking underneath the panel for this. This is really that's a stupid location. I'm saying that out straight. Calling skidoo on that one. Meanwhile, I also have to take out the dash. The reason why is I have to get the wiring harness for the Ride Lite from this side of the sled to this side of the sled. But there's a lot of wiring, so all I'm going to do is bring the wiring up underneath here because I can see into this part of the panel, and I'm going to put my additional wiring right behind the gauge here, and then enough wire to come out, and somewhere probably right here on the side. I'll have to see once I open this up, but there's an opening right there, and that'll probably be my best shot. So the wire harness comes with this box. Don't cut this box off. There's actually a circuit board in here. What it's doing, it's knocking the voltage down so the Ride Lite gets the correct voltage. So I don't think you can cut this short. Just leave it as is. Alright. Now, there is a positive and a negative on this wire. See if I can get it to show. There's a red stripe here. Nothing on this one. That red stripe means it's a positive connection. So be sure of doing that when you hook up. Now with your wiring harness came these splice. I'll give you a close-up view. For those who've never seen these things before, show you it up close here. And the way they work is one wire, or your wire that you're splicing into, goes through on the right side. That's constant regardless of the color. These come in blue, red, I've seen them in yellow, but it comes in the right side, so it goes straight through, as you can see. The other side only goes halfway in, and that is for one side. The other side is actually blocked, as you can see here. So that means your wire is going in, it's going to go in, and here we go, this side. The wire that you're splicing, that you're going to splice into the harness to power up the light, is going to go into the hole in the right here. Alright, as you can see, there's two slots in that metal. That metal does is it cuts the jacket of the wire, and that way this metal jacket, this metal piece here, is touching one wire to the next wire, and that's how it works. These are bought for different gauge wires, so this one is specific to the gauge wire that's being used. I am not a fan of these, to tell you up front. I prefer waterproof connections pretty much for everything, but in some situations or some circumstances, these will work fine. Because this is going to be underneath the panel here and not out in the elements, you can get away with this. Otherwise, normally I would splice the wire and use a waterproof butt connector to connect the wires, but this is fine for this application. So we're going to do positives first. Like I said, the first row is for the regular wire, and then you're going to take this wire, push it in, and of course I didn't grab my pliers, and you don't need any special pliers. These are fine. You're going to push that wire in, and then you're going to squeeze this metal tab down. Give it a tug, and we have a connection. This part folds over. So number one is done. Another reason why I'm not a fan of these is because they're bulky. But hey, gotta work with what you got. Here we go. I want to show you something here. One reason why I don't like working with these. That metal piece did catch the wire, but it also cut it. So that means I gotta pull this back off. I can't reuse this, they're not reusable. And so to take them off, you gotta use a flathead screwdriver and pry it open. Here's the other negative thing. It's now gonna leave a cut in the original ground wire that I just attached to. So we're going to go back to using waterproof, or I'm just going to use a straight butt connector on this. We're going to strip the end of this wire and then reconnect it. So flathead screwdriver, put it in, twist it. Removed. So right now my wire is cut wide open. Cut it. Now I'm working with a very short wire. So we gotta strip it. Strip the wire we're connecting. And, which is even shorter, where the one we cut it from. Now, if you have a solder iron, you could just solder these together and then shrink tube it. Or you can solder it just so it's a solid end. This is a shrink tube butt connector. They call it butt connector because the butt end of the two wires go on each side. I'm not going to shrink wrap this because there's not enough wire to work with a torch or anything like that, but we can still use this connector. So I'm just going to cut off I'm pulling it on it gently to see if it held. Take one more run at this. Alright, so now these two we're going to twist together. What happened is the butt connector I used was too small for these two wires to go in, so I'm bumping it up a size. My mistake. Should have measured that beforehand. Because I cut this so damn short, we're gonna add an extension to it. I'm just grabbing a short piece of wire. Well, I have to say, it ain't pretty. But now you know why I don't care for these things. They do cutting wires, so I was hoping it wouldn't happen, but it happened. But what are you gonna do? It is what it is. So this is all set. So we're gonna plug this back into the socket in here. So there's our wiring. I am not going to tighten that with a harness at all. I'm going to leave it loose because I don't want any stress on that wire. As for the fuse here, I zip tied it. So this is back in. Out here. This is back in place. I have access to it when the cover is off. So that side's done. So I'm not going to, no I can't, zip tie this wire so it's in a fixed location unless I zip tie it to this, which I don't want to do. So we're just going to zip tie our extra wire behind the dash here. The wire's coming right through a hole here in the dash. The extra bunch is zip tied and tucked down inside here, so it's out of the way. So now, time to reverse this whole process, which means putting this whole thing back together. So we're going to do that in time lapse. we're back together. Good idea here. So as a rider, you can easily change this out. Now, the 9-volt battery that goes in this only powers this in the hazard light. So if you watch the plastic screen there, okay, otherwise the 9-volt battery that goes in this unit does not power the unit in regards to green light or yellow light. So just give this a quick start. There we go. So that's the installation of a Ride Lite on a sled. As I said in the beginning, you want to choose a location where the panel is, you're able to remove the panel without it affecting the light, just because of the wiring. It's best just to mount that light in a position where you can open panels, remove panels, and the light is permanently mounted in there. That way you don't have to deal with the stupid wiring. As you saw, using out those red splicers, all the wiring I've done on boats, trailers, additional accessories on vehicles such as adding lights and stuff, I've always hated those things. It's so rare that I ever use them. In certain circumstances, I will use it. I thought I tried in this circumstance, and it failed. Second one failed. That's not the first time I've had them cut the wire when I'm trying to have it splice into the wire. It's happened to me numerous times. So that's why I get all pissed off at those things. And I don't know why I keep trying to use them. So stick to butt connectors. Cut the wire in half and use a freaking butt connector. And use the correct size, unlike I did in the first shot. So I think that's really it. Otherwise, I'm happy with the whole thing, the way it came out. It's simple, it's adjustable in any direction, so it doesn't interfere with the handlebar. Even if she had huge muffs on the thing, it still wouldn't be in the way. So any questions, write full of questions down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Overall time for installation on this was definitely 2 hours for this. It's just because of the number of panels you have to remove and trying to find every single screw that holds the panel in. So it's not something that you're going to knock off in less than an hour, for the most part, on the more modern snowmobiles. On the old snowmobiles where the whole hood opens up, well, that one's kind of blatantly obvious. So that's it. Trackside down. Have a good time on the trails this season. Hopefully we get hit this Saturday with a big nor'easter. They're talking about 12 to 18 inches. So, big guy DIY Robert signing off. Have a good one.